Well, thank you very much for coming today. I certainly appreciate that. The Bioethics Center is a co-sponsor of this event, and so welcome. Welcome to the conference, first of all, I'd like to say. Second, I'd like to mention are the brochures that are in your packet that when you came in. A couple things about the Bioethics Center and about our philosophy program at Concordia University. So there's a brochure, trifold brochure about the Concordia Center for Bioethics with its mission statement, both the general mission statement and its academic mission statement. A little brochure about the philosophy program, and one of our philosophers is here on campus at Ann Arbor, Steve Parrish, but it also talks about the other philosophers in our program as well as things that we specialize in, worldviews, comparing the faith, bioethics, applying the faith, and apologetics, defending the faith. And our philosophers have published several papers and given many presentations and some books about those various issues. And then there's also a flyer on the graduate certificate in bioethics, which I'll mention just a little bit. And then coming around is also a flyer on an event that's being held next weekend, actually next Friday, May 3rd, at Concordia University Wisconsin, at the other Concordia University. As many of you know, Ann Arbor is now part of Concordia University Wisconsin, so we're two campuses of the same university. And so at Concordia, Wisconsin, we're actually having Reverend Salmonik come and speak at talk two times. One is on the topic, "This is my body, Christian compassion and courage concerning sexuality and gender." That's in the afternoon from 1 to 2 o'clock in the terrace room. So if you're near the area or if you'd like to come, feel free to come. And then in the evening, we have a banquet presentation, which is actually hosted by the Center for Bioethics, Wisconsin Lutherans for Life, and also Students for Life on campus. So we're going to have a combination banquet and another presentation. And his topic at that point is, for that presentation, is physician-assisted suicide. So I'd be happy to have you for that event. There's registration information down below. I know it says April 15th, but if you want to come, just let me know. Be happy to have you register. I'd like to point out that there's a display for the Bioethics Center at the back. Feel free to check it out. There's some freebies back there, some videos and handouts on various issues and about our programs as well, and some posters of bioethics forums that we have. Typically every semester we have an invited speaker come in. In fact, Reverend Salmonik is our speaker this semester to talk about various bioethics issues. So, just a little bit about the Bioethics Center for a little bit of the time that I have left. So here's my contact information. It's also on some of the handouts, but it's just kevin.voss@cuw.edu, so just feel free to contact me anytime you have a speaking request or just want to kind of someone to bounce issues off of, feel free, or give me a call, 262-243-4398. I'm here for you. I'm at Concordia University as a director of the Bioethics Center there, but I'm really here for you. There's a little picture of my family. My daughter, Rachel, who's in the middle with her husband, Stephen, is actually a physician as well, as is Dr. Harrison, and she's specializing in surgery and the surgical oncology, so cancer surgery. And then my son at the far right is in the Army, and he's in the EOD Corps, and I don't know if any of you know what that is, but he basically stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal. He defuses bombs for a living. My wife isn't too thrilled about that, but he loves it, so he gets to play with million-dollar robots, so that's, and he loves video games, so it's just up his alley. A little bit about me. I actually was raised in Brillion, Wisconsin, which is about 30 miles south of Green Bay. I was a practicing veterinarian for 14 years. Unfortunately, I had to retire from practice because of allergies. I became allergic to my patients. So that kind of forced me out of that vocation, and I was thinking about what other direction I could go in veterinary medicine, and actually at the urging of my pastor, he said, why don't you think about seminary as a second career, because I've been so actively involved in our congregation in Bondwell, Wisconsin, where I practiced. And so that's what I did. Sold my share of the practice. We moved down to St. Louis, so we moved from a town of 1,000 to a city of several million, so that was quite a culture shock, especially for our children. But now they wouldn't go back. You know, they just love it. They're glad it happened, and it was all under the Lord's direction. When I finished seminary there, then I was thinking of going into the parish ministry. Then the faculty there said, why don't you think about teaching bioethics with your medical training? It would all just fit together perfectly. And it just so happened there was a Ph.D. program at St. Louis University in healthcare ethics. So we didn't have to move. My children could finish high school. So it all sort of fit together. And when I finished my classroom work and comprehensive exams, Concordia University Wisconsin found out about me and brought me on board in 2003. So I've actually been there 16 years now. And so I actually was just promoted to full professor, which is kind of a cool thing too. And you can see some things I've done at Concordia University, including chairing an institutional review board, which actually oversees human subject research. Also, because I'm the only veterinarian on campus, by default I'm on the animal care and use committee, so I can't, we do zebrafish research on campus, so we don't have any other research right now in animal research. Just the other day, in fact Thursday, there's our institutional review board. I had to put that on there, and we happen to have Bernie Brewer on campus, as well as the racing sausages, so we had our picture taken with Bernie Brewer. Here's what large animal veterinarians spend their time doing. I was a dairy veterinarian, so it wasn't all glamour work. It was never fun getting a call at 2 in the morning with an obstetrical case in 20 below weather. That's one thing human obstetricians don't have to mess with, is deliver babies out in the cold, but we did. And so a large percentage of our practice was spent doing reproductive medicine, preventative reproductive medicine, as well as emergency reproductive medicine. When I was a veterinarian and working and then experienced these the allergy issues, I had to take cortisone in order to stay in practice, and one of the side effects of cortisone can be that it can weaken your bone structure. And I'm not sure if that was the cause of this or not, but one day I was working on a cow, doing a glamour job of a veterinarian, trimming her hoof, because she had a sore foot. And her other leg kicked me, my right leg, and broke it in 3 places. So that gave me time to think. And then when I gave a presentation at a pastor's conference down in Texas a few years ago, and I told my story, then a pastor drew this cartoon. Well, Dr. Voss, God used a big fish with Jonah. For your call, he chose a cow. So you can see the cow kicking me and breaking my leg. It's all on there very graphically. So the Concordia Center for Bioethics, the mission statement is, it's certainly Christian-centered. It's a Christian academic center that applies God's word to issues involving biology and healthcare. And that's the definition of bioethics, ethical issues involving biology and healthcare. And how do we do that? 3 ways: through teaching, service, and research. So you can see all the different types of issues that we study: beginning of life issues, end of life issues, anything in between, including healthcare reform. How did the Bioethics Center start? It actually started in the late 90s by Dr. Richard Iyer. Perhaps many of you remember him. Yeah, I consider him a close friend of mine, and he's been a wonderful mentor. And the institute, it started as the Concordia Bioethics Institute. Well, we changed our name for 2 reasons. One is that we have a Concordia Bible Institute on campus. The initials are CBI. Concordia Bioethics Institute. Initials are CBI. So things always kept getting mixed up, and so they actually asked if we would consider changing our name. The other reason why we did that is actually more fundamental, is that now we've gone in the direction of academia, more scholarly research, and typically the word center implies more, including the think tank thing like institute does, but also implies academic programs as well. So the CBI has become the Concordia Center for Bioethics, and a couple things that we've done is we've become more involved in life in Concordia University. For example, we teach courses for the nursing program. We give guest lectures in the pharmacy school. We give guest lectures for the physician assistant program. We have just about every healthcare program on campus other than maybe a medical school, but we have just about everything else. And so we're participating in those programs, giving ethics lectures, or actually teaching whole courses on ethics. And then we've expanded the role of academics, and not only within the church and on Concordia, but also in secular realm as well. We give papers and presentations to a secular audience like the American Society of Bioethics and Humanities, which is the largest association of bioethicists in actually the world, I believe. And so, in fact, I've given 2 papers at 2 different conferences there already. So all those sorts of things are what the Bioethics Center are involved in, and this just gives you a brief flavor of some of the things we've done. Ethics education, and the 2 main things that we do as far as ethics education, better check my time here, is we offer a graduate certificate in bioethics, which any of you can take as long as you have a bachelor's degree and as long as your GPA was 3.0 or higher. It's self-paced. You can do it at home. It's a series of 4 courses, and it goes on your transcript. You know, it's actually an academic certificate, so that's for people who have graduated already with a bachelor's degree. And then we offer an undergraduate minor in bioethics for students at Concordia who want to add that as a minor. And then outreach, you can see the list there: church groups, pastors' conferences, committees, serving on synod committees, for example. Both Reverend Salmonik and I serve on the Sanctity of Human Life Committee, so very important work there. We also served on the Synod Task Force in Reproduction, as well as did Dr. Harrison. And then conferences and seminars. We give support particularly for the Concordia Apologetics Conference, which actually the student ministry leadership team on campus hosts every year, and so we give them financial support, and then we host bioethics forums, and we've had speakers such as Wesley Smith, we've had Carol Tobias, we will have Reverend Salmonik, and we've had other more academic speakers as well. We've had Dr. Iyer, so you can see the posters laying back there on the table, and then of course scholarly papers presented at conferences. Here's the academic program mission. The academic program of the Concordia Center for Bioethics, which we abbreviate now CCB, so it's not CBI, so we can abbreviate it CCB, applies Christ-centered thought to issues involving biology and healthcare. Students in CB courses will analyze and apply ethical principles grounded in biblical understanding of the world and informed by contemporary scholarship. So here's a little blurb on the minor in bioethics in case there are Ann Arbor students here and they might want to think about applying for the minor in bioethics. I think the minor is a perfect complement to many majors and career paths, especially pre-seminary, especially healthcare programs, for example. And I think that added qualification, as it says in that last bullet point, would make any student an attractive hire for the healthcare field, the private sector, and governmental agencies as well. So here's just an overview of the minor in bioethics if there are students here. It's 21 credits for the minor, no prerequisites, and we're willing even to transfer in some courses if you've gone to other universities. We require some cool courses like Human Dignity, for example, Philosophy 221, Philosophy 350, a course that I teach, Bioethical Dilemmas in Contemporary Society, which is required by several healthcare programs on campus, and then also American Politics and Healthcare Policy and Christian Caregiving, as well as require them to take the upper-level New Testament and Old Testament courses that typically pre-seminary students would have to take. And then they also have 6 credits of electives that they can apply to. Graduate certificate in bioethics, maybe some of you might be interested in that, and if you are, feel free to contact me. It's taught from a Christian perspective, which is unique for a bioethics certificate. Many programs offer them across the country. They're typically from a secular perspective, or maybe from a Catholic perspective. Ours is from a Lutheran Christian perspective. Gives participants experience in practical application of moral principles, ethical theory of the law, can be earned as well on campus if someone's enrolled in one of our doctoral programs or master's programs, can be done that as well. It's flexible, offered online, is self-paced, and we've actually reduced the cost and reduced the number of credits from 15 to 12. So 4 courses, here's the list of courses, 4 courses to complete that certificate. Some great courses. Moral Reasoning and Bioethics, taught by one of my colleagues, Dr. Gregory Schultz, on Concordia campus. Clinical Issues in Bioethics, I teach that one. Bioethics and Biotechnology, taught by Reverend Robert Fleischman, who's Director of Christian Life Resources, a friend of mine who lives in the Milwaukee area. And then Bioethics and the Law, which is actually currently taught by the Assistant District Attorney of Ozaukee County, where Concordia University is located. So we have someone with a lot of experience in trials and things like that. So what sort of issues do we discuss? Let me just see how much time I have. 5 minutes maybe left, or wrap it up before then. Virginia, what do you say, 5 minutes yet, or a couple minutes? Okay, so for maybe when I'm done. What are some issues, some bioethics issues? Let me just show you some pictures and some issues that we tackle. Reproductive technology, of course, was just mentioned this morning. The whole issue of course, abortion is so fundamental, but also in vitro fertilization, contraception, all those issues are important. Genetic testing and therapy, I'll talk a little bit about that this afternoon. Some exciting research in gene editing, CRISPR, where you can actually edit the human genome like you can a word processing document, which can actually be very helpful to people suffering from genetic diseases, but it can also be scary as well. So hold that thought till this afternoon. Stem cells, that's been an issue probably for almost the last 20 years. The controversy of embryonic stem cell research, is, for those of you who are familiar with that issue, there are 2 types of stem cells, adult and embryonic. Adult stem cells, which are taken from our bodies, really don't present any more ethical problems than any other form of treatment, but embryonic stem cells, to get those cells, they have to destroy early embryos, and that's a problem. End-of-life care. Terry Schiavo, there's a picture of her tombstone in the back of my display. Many of you perhaps heard of the Terry Schiavo case, but there are other cases that come up as well. So how do we deal with end-of-life care? When's the proper time to remove feeding tubes and ventilators? When can we forego treatment? When should we not forego treatment? And then healthcare reform, management of healthcare resources, Obamacare. The government, I can't believe it still hasn't dealt with this issue and still hasn't done a comprehensive healthcare reform, and something needs to be done because costs continue to escalate. So those are issues we study too. So what makes us unique? We offer a distinctively Lutheran approach to bioethics based on law and gospel, yet we're able to dialogue in the secular realm too. We're a firm proponent of the sanctity of human life. We're the only bioethics center at a Concordia University institution. And here I am at the March for Life in 2019, and Reverend Salmonik was there as well. So there's one of my students, in fact, and so we were there marching along, even though I have a bum knee currently, which is kind of a bummer, but here are some presentations. If Reverend Salmonik or someone else isn't available and you need someone to come in and give a presentation to your church group or pastoral conference, here's just a partial list of some of the talks that I talk about that I can present on, including beginning of life issues, end of life issues, cloning, stem cell research, Nazi experiments, which was mentioned this morning. Why do people think the way they do? Why do people have various beliefs about several ethical issues? We'll talk about ethical theories this afternoon. Transhumanism, the way to eternal life through the use of science and technology. Many people, typically atheists, believe that this is the way to eternal life. Gene editing, we talked about that. Here's something I just presented on at a conference a couple months ago. Humans on a chip. They're actually growing human organ systems on a chip, just like a computer chip, doing research on those chips. Could it be feasible someday to have a complete human on a chip? Interesting issue. We did have Gianna Jessen at Concordia University in 2007. Very interesting story. She actually was aborted as a baby and lived to survive to tell about it. She still walks with a limp, beautiful singing voice. But quite a story from her, and she was on campus too. What you might not be aware of, occasionally I appear on KFUO St. Louis and also in Issues, etc., occasionally even on television. I actually debated a stem cell researcher on Milwaukee Public Television and also debated the abortion protection, or the marriage protection amendment that was up for debate in the state of Wisconsin, which actually was passed as a constitutional amendment, that marriage has to be between one man, one woman, and was voted in by the voters of the state of Wisconsin, and of course the Supreme Court just wiped it all away. We have a Madagascar connection. That might be something you might not know. Actually, I was invited to give a talk to Lutheran pastors there about 10 years ago about HIV/AIDS, which is a big problem in most of Africa. Madagascar is an island off the southeast coast of Africa right here. It's fourth largest island in the world, and actually one of the fastest growing Lutheran churches in the world. In fact, I'm friends with the current president, who was a pastor at that time. He was pastor of the largest Lutheran congregation in Madagascar, 7,000 members in his congregation. Now he's president of the entire synod, which actually has about 4.5 million members, twice as big as the LCMS. And his name is President David Lurokotonyarina. And his son Solomon currently attends Concordia University. And he loves basketball, so I took him to a Bucks basketball game. His name is Solomon, so you get it? His dad's name is David. His son's name is Solomon. So very biblical there. There I am giving that presentation in Madagascar. And I'm going to just skip these next couple slides because I know I'm out of time. But here's one impact the Concordia Center for Bioethics had in Madagascar. We actually helped them build a new church at one congregation. And it only costs, believe it or not, to build a whole entire church building. How would you like this for your congregations? $4,000. But $1,000 is like $1 million there. It just stretches. But life is such a wonderful gift of God, isn't it? And so I'm happy to be here with you and glad that you have come to this conference. Thank you.